The fan base last season was absolutely behind the team. They only lost one game at home all season. They've managed to get back up into the top flight, and they've started very well. Okay, they lost at home against Sevilla, but that was an 84th minute goal that Ganso scored. They nearly got a point out of that one. They've been putting in good performances. They look like a team that aren't going to concede many goals, and they're going to be very difficult to beat, especially at home, which I think is why, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, Ernesto Valverde has basically made no changes to his side on a day that we thought he was going to make probably 4 or 5 rotations.
Yeah, that's right. You can see there Denis Suarez, for example. Maybe some people expected him to get a start. Well, no, he's on the bench. The midfield trio is unchanged. Paulinho in the images there also not starting today, but will take his place in the dugout. Only really one change, I think we could say, which is going to be the introduction of Sergio Roberto, presumably at right back / wing back, and I think that just shows how seriously Ernesto Valverde is taking the challenge today. They want the 3 points, Barcelona, there's no doubt about that. They want to put that psychological pressure on Real Madrid for the rest of today and all during the day tomorrow until the 8:45 Spanish time evening kick-off in Anoeta against Real Sociedad. They want Real Madrid to be thinking that Barcelona is 7 points clear, and that it will be necessary to take the 3 points from the joint Liga leaders tomorrow for the Whites to at least limit the gap to 4.
Yeah, and I think, you look at that game at Anoeta against a Real Sociedad side that are bang in form, playing really good football, very difficult to beat. There's every chance that Real Madrid are going to drop points. There's every chance that game, knowing that 3 points could be, as you very rightly said, Simon, a huge psychological advantage, 7 points clear of their rivals.
It's great to see the Coliseum as full as this for the game. It's not always been the case with Getafe in the top flight. It lasts a very long spell, over a decade long of seasons. As you said, Duncan, there seems to have been a renewal of optimism here, and well, let's see if the atmosphere aids the home side. It's also true there's a large number of Barcelona today. The pitch in decent condition. It's not always been the case in this ground, and well, Barcelona have lost here 3 times in the last spell of Getafe in the top flight. Let's see the lineup of Getafe selected by Jose Bordalas for today. Old face there, Vicente Huayta in goal. The back 4 of Damian Suarez, Genet Deconam, Juan Cala and Vitorino Antunes. In the holding midfield roles, Markel Begada on loan from Real Sociedad, and Mauro Arambari on loan from Boston River, and the author of a magnificent goal against Leganés last weekend. Faisal Fahir and Amath Ndiaye playing wide. The Japanese playmaker Shibasaki tucked in behind veteran striker Jorge Molina.
And it's a strong team. I think what Getafe have done very well under Bordalas is unite a team with experience and also with some talented youngsters coming through. They brought in some experience at the end of last season, some first division experience, the likes of Faja, who had a wonderful season with Deportivo. I'm surprised they let him go, but they also got the pick of the Segunda, it seemed, as well, with Shibasaki coming in and also Angel.
Well, they've shaken hands with the referee, Mr. Borbalan, and for lining up for Barcelona, Mark ter Stegen making his 100th appearance for the club. Sergio Roberto coming in at right back to join Piqué, Umtiti and Alba in defence. There's a very solid look about the midfield. Ivan Rakitic, Sergio Busquets and Andres Iniesta. And up front, Leo Messi, Luis Suarez. Expected more rotation. We expected perhaps to see Umtiti rested with Mascherano coming into defence, maybe, and Deula bench.
Yeah, you're right. I think all 4 of those players that you've mentioned, and even Andre Gomez could have been in the starting 11. We wondered which players would come in the end. As we've already mentioned, there's only one. It's Sergio Roberto, who's coming from Semedo, so it's pretty much, I think, Ernesto Valverde's A-team.
Well, That demonstrates, as we've said, the challenge or the importance given to it by Valverde. We can see here Dembele starting on the right flank of Barcelona's attack. That goes against what our graphics department felt would be the lineup. It's Barca attacking the goal to the right of your screens.
Well, this is how I think we're going to see Barca lining up in the front three. Leo Messi is going to play that false nine role. We can see him in the middle of the three. I think that is how Ernesto Valverde wants this Barca side to play, and we will see Suarez pushing out as he is right now a little bit to the left-hand side with Dembele on the right. Whether that means that Suarez will score less goals this season, I'm not sure. I personally don't think so. I think he'll still have a lot of freedom to go through them as well, but I do think Leo Messi will be playing that false nine role for the remainder of the campaign, and it's a role that he plays so very well, and he's so extremely dangerous there.
I think we're seeing Suarez looking to get in between the left back and the left central defender rather than between the two centre backs, certainly freeing up that left wing for Jordi Alba, who's actually said, hasn't he, these days, that he feels he's got a different mentality this season. We see Jorge Molina testing Ter Stegen with the first shot on target of the game.
Jorge Molina, by the way, who scored 20 goals last season after signing from Real Betis for Getafe. He's the Getafe captain, leads by example, and he was so important in getting them promoted to the first division, which they did via the playoffs.
That's a beautiful ball from Messi, looking for the incursion of Alba into the box, well dealt with by Damian Suarez, and cleared finally by Vicente White. Piqué wins it convincingly in the air, picked up by Ivan Rakitic. Here's Samuel Umtiti. He's played every second of the season so far. Andres Iniesta.
You mentioned that change in attitude, Simon. I think it's not just Jordi Alba. I think there's a number of players, and Iniesta, who was just on the ball, I think we've seen the best of Iniesta in these first few games of this season. Something that maybe we didn't see in the whole of last season. He had a bit of a strange season in terms of injuries, but I also think that he's much more comfortable, much happier under Ernesto Valverde. I also think the same goes for Leo Messi, and certainly for Ivan Rakitic, who's playing, I think, his best football in a Barca shirt so far this campaign.
Dembele giving it back to Sergio Roberto, already pushing very far forward up the pitch. There's Gerard Piqué, guaranteed a chilly reception when he travels almost anywhere outside of Catalonia, but especially to the environs of Madrid. This is Gené, back to White. Sending it long. Molina's underneath it, so too was Samuel Umtiti. It's flicked on by Fahir, a chase there for Ndiaye, causing problems for Piqué, who plays his way out of it. In the end, Jordi Alba winning the goal kick. And Bordelas, with that kind of intellectual look of his in front of the dugout there, giving instructions.
He's an interesting manager, he's an interesting man. He, of course, won promotion with Deportivo Alavés and then was sacked that summer, so never got the opportunity to lead them in the top flight. He then went to Getafe, did exactly the same thing, got Getafe straight back up, and on this occasion he was allowed to experience the first division for the first time in his career, because as a player he never really enjoyed much success at all. He never actually got any higher than the fourth division, where he represented Hércules. So it's his first ever time in the top flight, and so far so good for José Bordalas.
The goal for Getafe this season, survival in La Liga Santander, no doubt about that. They'll try and get the 40 points on board as quickly as they can. It's going to be a tough ask for them. That one came off Sergio Roberto. He couldn't quite control it. Throw in to Getafe, who've looked quite positive in these first 4.5 minutes.
They've looked quite positive in these first 3.5 or not quite games as well, to be honest, Simon. They drew 0-0 in their first game. They then lost, as we mentioned earlier, 1-0 at home to Sevilla, but put in a really solid performance, and they were only beaten by that 83rd minute goal by Ganso, and then won in the derby in the south of Madrid against Leganés with a goal in the last few minutes from Jimenez, and put in a really good performance. And as you say, they've started brightly against Barca, showing that they're perfectly happy to have possession and knock the ball around, especially at home. They only lost one game all season last season, and that was in September, so quite early on in the campaign, against Girona, who were of as we know, the side that finished second and end up being promoted.
Well, Antunes and Cala playing the ball back to Whiter there. It'll be interesting to see how the young Uruguayan Adam Barry and Shibasaki are linked up, because they're the danger players, they're the creative players really in this lineup. So battling, and Janek coming off better. It's when Dye loses it. Rakitic has the sketch there. Found Alba, who gets that one sharp under pressure from. Finds out back here.
It was really good pressure. Potentially attacking what would have been a dangerous position. Were forced back towards the halfway line by Getafe.
To Whiter, who clears straight at Umtiti. Busquets returns the ball to him. Now Iniesta. Busquets. Oh, lovely touch from Messi. It's one of the famous Barcelona half touches there, and very nearly leading to a break through the middle of the defence for Iniesta. You can see how high the two fullbacks are pushing up for Valverde's side. Rakitic on the ball. Dembele with a decent first touch, but he's just bullied off the ball by Antunes, who's going to have his work cut out, you would have thought, on loan from Dynamo Kiev, Vitorino Antunes, and facing Dembele today. Good opportunity for Dembele.
Yeah, it really is. He's looked excellent, I think, since he's arrived at Football Club Barcelona. Came on as a sub in his first game. He then started against Juve in the Champions League. I thought he played well, and now he's back in the starting 11 in the league, and I think he's a really good signing. Okay, you can't compare him to Neymar, but once that situation happened, they had to react. Football Club Barcelona, and it was slightly chaotic for a few weeks, but I think they've done some pretty good business. You know, I think Dembele is going to be an excellent player. He's going to provide an awful lot of goals for Leo Messi and Luis Suarez, and I think that having Deulofeu back at the club to come on in the 60th, 70th minute to maybe take on the defence, to change the game, to provide an assist, I think is a really good tool for Barca this season.
Rakitic feeding it wide to Dembele, who turns Juan Cala. Cala responds well, and Dembele loses his footing. It'll be a goal kick. The first turn was a neat one, just couldn't quite maintain the momentum there.
I think his brain was a bit quicker than his legs that time. He did well though. It's an excellent turn, and he's left Cala for dead, and then he's just slipped over. Unfortunate for Dembele, because he did the hard bit.
Well, he did. Have been times when Barcelona, we mentioned before the kick-off, have struggled here. Getafe were in the top flight for, I think it was 12 consecutive seasons. Chance here, Fahir having a go, and no problems whatsoever for Ter Stegen. He didn't quite catch it. But over that more than a decade of top flight football that was seen in the Alfonso Perez, Barcelona drew here 3 times and lost here 3 times, and that's not the best of sequences for a club of the size of Barcelona. Of course, there was that famous cup defeat when Bert Schuster was the manager of Football Club Barcelona. Leo Messi just bursting onto the scene. He scored a Maradona-esque strike in the first leg in the Camp Nou that Barcelona won pretty easily, but then they lost here by, I think, 5-1, and were bundled out of the cup. One of the big surprises of that tournament over the last decade or so. It's Getafe bursting forward. This is Molina taking on and beating Piqué. Piqué brings him down. What's the referee giving here? It's definitely a free kick. It's definitely outside the box. And I think, to the relief of Gerard Piqué, it's only a yellow card.
Well, I tell you what, I think that's very, very close to being a penalty kick. Let's see this one again. It's clearly outside the box. But it's a rugby tackle from Gerard Piqué. He knows he's been done there by Jorge Molina. It's a brilliant piece of skill. He puts the ball through Gerard Piqué's legs, and well, Piqué's reaction is to take him down with a rugby tackle, and he's lucky, Gerard Piqué, that there were other defenders back, because he could have been the last man, and he's lucky that it's not a foot further and he would have been inside the box and it would have been a penalty.
I think he realised where the ball was and what the situation was, and thought, here, I take one for the team, because Molina ripped him apart there. Brilliant piece of skill from the veteran, and this is a dangerous free kick. Faisal Fahir to take it. Now he's going to leave it for Vitorino Antunes, although it may well be the Moroccan. Little touch back to the left footer, laid off, and the attempt from Adam Barry didn't quite strike that one as well as the other night in Butarque against Leganés, but Barcelona momentarily shaken.
They certainly are, and it was a good set piece as well from Getafe. I like that. It's always nice to see something that's worked on the training field, and it almost came off. The strike not quite good enough, but Barca didn't see it coming. It was a good passage of play from Getafe, and they've made an excellent start in these first nearly 11 minutes of this game.
Yeah, very impressive, that turn, the way that Molina really bullied his way past Gerard Piqué. It's not that often you can say that, but he really had the measure of him. Nervous moments for Barcelona, who now have the ball once again.
I think he bullied him physically, and he outwitted him as well and outskilled him. It was a marvellous piece of skill straight through Piqué's legs. He didn't see it coming.
Yeah, Molina's not going to beat anybody for pace these days,
no.
is he? But for experience, wily intelligence and skill, full marks there for the veteran striker. Here's Andres Iniesta. Alba returns it to him. He loses it to Adam Barry. Busquets tries it first time. A neat touch from Fahir. And there's one for Ndiaye to chase. Piqué getting there first. Molina again involved in things. It falls to Iniesta. Here's Leo Messi. Still Messi feeds it through the middle. Alba's offside. And the ball goes wide anyway.
It's brilliant from Leo Messi, wasn't it? He knew exactly where he wanted to put the ball. He was waiting for Jordi Alba to make the run, and then just at the right moment played the pass. But Jordi Alba had got himself into an offside position. But thumbs up for Leo Messi. They were completely on the same wavelength, those two players. It was obvious Messi was just holding the ball up while his teammate made the run, and it was nearly brilliant.
I think it's fair to say that Jordi Alba's form of his life really reminds me of back in tournament with Spain, and signed for Barcelona during it, and it just, the absence of Neymar is never going to be a positive thing for any club, losing a player of the quality of Junior, but it has given Jordi Alba a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more room to take initiative on that left flank, and as you say, his communication with Messi at times seems almost telepathic. Sergio Roberto back to Gerard Piqué. Ndiaye keeping the pressure on the young Barcelona number 20. Here's Busquets to Umtiti. Umtiti out to Alba. Alba with the option of Andres Iniesta. Lovely turn, Iniesta. Got away from Bergerac, but I think was just pulled back.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Free kick for Barca. I think just adding to the point that you've just made, Simon, of course no one's going to say that losing Neymar's positive, and Barca quite clearly didn't want it to happen either. You know, they did everything they possibly could to try and keep the Brazilian, and he only went because PSG paid the clause in his contract which enabled him to go.
That was a lovely play from Dembélé, linked up with Messi. See the return ball coming from Andres Iniesta. Juan Cala, without messing about, puts the ball out of play, and it will be a throw in for Barcelona. Well defended there, really, from Cala. Neat work from Suarez. The ball cleared once again by Cala. Lovely first time flick there from Iniesta. Gets the ball back from Alba. Can't get away from Fahir and Damian Suarez. It'll be a throw to Getafe. It came off Andres Iniesta. Good first quarter of an hour here in the Coliseum.
Just going back to the Neymar debate, famously Johan Cruyff said a few years ago when Barca were looking to sign Neymar that you can't have two cockerels in the same hen pen. And although he wasn't necessarily proved right, because I think Neymar arrived and he was very happy to play second fiddle to Leo Messi from the start. He said, I'm playing next to the best player in the world. But I think there is an argument, which is maybe what you were just slightly hinting at, that this Iniesta we're seeing a better Jordi Alba. I think maybe there is a bit more balance about them.
Good first time ball from Shibasaki there. Molina didn't quite have the pace to pick up on it, but Shibasaki's been very impressive, and that showed good initiative. Here's Rakitic winning the loose ball, picks out Dembele. Oh, he tried to let it go, and it's stolen from him by Vitorino Antunes. Lays it off for Ndiaye on the overlap. Shibasaki, and on the far post, Jorge Molina knows that was maybe the somewhat more than a half chance that he would have hoped for before kickoff.
And I can't believe he didn't prod it home. Have to see this replay. So nearly tucking it away at the back post.
Brilliant from Shibasaki. The deflection was just enough to leave Molina without any angle at all, I think. But I mean, he was about, what, a foot away from that far post.
Yeah.
You see again Ndiaye waiting for Shibasaki. Just got enough of a touch. First off the thigh of Gerard Piqué, and then Mark ter Stegen got a fingertip to it. And really that left Molina without a target. But that's the best chance of the game so far. The fourth chance for Getafe. Busquets just overcooks the pass a bit for Dembele.
Yeah, a bit too direct from Sergio Busquets on that occasion. Too comfortable and simple for the goalkeeper.
Guaita sending it long, straight and deep. Busquets was under it, getting there ahead of Molina. Here's Jordi Alba. Momentarily, Barca, no width there at all, all packed in tightly. Rakitic to Busquets. Sergio Roberto dropping a bit wider. Busquets again to Rakitic. Good pressing from Shibasaki. Iniesta to Alba. Alba nonchalantly chips the cross in, and it's a little bit too firm for Luis Suarez. All the advantage was for Vicente Guaita.
I think it's very interesting that Ernesto Valverde's made no changes. I think, or barely any rotations in this side, only one, which is Semedo on the bench and Sergio Roberto coming in. I have absolutely no doubt that if it was Luis Enrique on the bench right now, we'd be seeing a very, very different side to the one that played. Oh, it's hit him on the hand, I think.
It certainly looked it from that angle, didn't it? Very fortunate. You can see his hand move backwards with the...
and there's no question.
Response. Yeah, no question at all. What's surprising is the lack of appeal from Shibasaki, who surely had the best view of anybody. Molina up for that. Cala got his head to it and just looped gently into the gloves of Mark ter Stegen. Barcelona is suffering, and Gerard Piqué stays down.
Well, he's had a pretty uncomfortable first 18 minutes, Gerard Piqué. I'm not certain that the referee would have given that as a handball anyway had he seen it, but he certainly was outwitted and outskilled by Molina. Picked up a yellow card for that rugby tackle on him. He's now being clattered, but he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to continue, but certainly it's probably been slightly affected here, Football Club Barcelona. They did drop some silly points though against, with all due respect, smaller teams last season, and that was certainly something Luis Enrique was criticised for, and it was so often when he did make rotations because of Champions League games, because of midweek games, or simply rotations because he was going to smaller sides and he thought that his so-called B team, or certainly some subs, could come in and get him the result. But if you look at the points they dropped last season, they lost at home in September against Alaves.
It's a good run there from Sergio Roberto, and Luis Suarez losing control. Sorry to interrupt you there, Duncan.
That's all right. They then lost away at Celta. Remember that cracking game where they lost 4-3. And then at the end of the season, they drew away at Betis, they lost away at Deportivo, and they lost away at Malaga. Don't forget, they only lost the league by 1 point.
Yeah, no, a lot of points there in those games you mentioned. But that's, I think it was you mentioned on the Liga review show a couple of weeks ago, that rotation, if you end up taking the 3 points, you're a genius.
Yeah.
But if you rotate and lose, then you're absolutely crucified in the media, aren't you?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
The clearance from Genet, he wins the throw. It came off the Barca player.
And I think as a manager you have to be brave to rotate, because of course you want to put out your strongest team for every game you play. And as a manager you're not feeling that tiredness, but you know that your players are, and you have to be sensible. And he will have to rotate Ernesto Valverde this season, there's no question about it, but it's still early days. He's looking for what will be a 5th straight win in all competitions. They've already won 4 on the bounce, they haven't conceded yet, they're leading 12-0 on aggregate in La Liga and the Champions League. It's been a superb start to the season, and he wants that to continue. At the moment, tiredness isn't setting in, so I think his point is, why rotate? And I think it's probably a pretty good idea at the moment.
Well, he'd certainly be delighted if Barcelona were to get, let's say, on 60 minutes, a 2 or 3 goal advantage. That would give him the chance to maybe rest players. He's got Denis Suarez, Paulinho, Andre Gomez and De La Feo on the bench, who could give Iniesta, Rakitic perhaps a break, any 2 of them. He's got Mascherano and Semedo also. So he's certainly got options, but at the moment